I am beyond thrilled to announce that doors will soon be opening to the Wholesome Fertility Method online program. If you've been listening to this podcast, you know that I love to infuse meaning and spirituality into my practice, and I'm so excited to be sharing this program that I have put my heart and soul into. I have left no stone unturned with the creation of this program. This course includes everything that I provide for my patients, including how to understand your charts from a Chinese medicine perspective, detox recipes and protocols, simple and easy ways to go clean on products and cosmetics, research-backed nutrition that has been shown to improve fertility health, fertility-boosting supplements and herbs, breathing exercises, bonus fertility yoga videos, techniques to awaken your innate power to heal yourself, and what answering your sacred call really means. My deepest intention with this program is to empower and inspire you to align with your highest self. I will be offering both independent study as well as added coaching, which has limited spots available. If you're interested in getting on the waitlist, then don't wait. Visit www.thewholesomefertilitymethod.com now, as doors will only be open for a limited time. You will not want to miss it. Episode number 59 of the Wholesome Fertility Podcast. Welcome to the Wholesome Fertility Podcast. I'm Michelle, a fertility acupuncturist here to provide you with resources on how to create a wholesome approach to your fertility journey. Today I welcome Bette Galen back. Bette is a licensed clinical social worker who specializes in fertility and was a guest on my podcast on episode number 26. I wanted to invite Bette back for a special holiday season episode because I know she can provide valuable tips on how to deal with the challenges that come up during the holiday. Bette Galen has been a licensed clinical social worker for 16 years. Her specialties include women's reproductive health, trauma, and life transitions. If you would like to learn more about Bette, check out episode number 26 of this podcast, where she shares how her fertility journey led her to find her calling. So welcome back to the podcast, Bette.
Yeah, thanks so much, Michelle. Love talking to you.
Me too. So I wanted to have you back. It's around the holidays. I thought, especially during the holidays, as we know, it's probably really tough because a lot of people going through fertility challenges get together with family, friends, relatives. I mean, there's so many different scenarios that they can be in that are so challenging. And I figured you'd be perfect to have on to bring up maybe some tips or some tools that people could get or use during these times.
Yeah, this is something I always speak about in my support group around these times because it is really challenging for a lot of people, even if they've just started going through fertility treatment or they've been in it for a year or more. It just is such a trigger when they see people having that which they don't have quite yet.
Mm-hmm.
So there's a lot of things that I talk about it in terms of how to take care. The biggest thing is how to take care of yourself during this time. And I always say, treat yourself kindly and with compassion. And that means that you might be making decisions that family doesn't really want you to make because you may be putting yourself first. And that may be a hard situation for you to do and for your family to accept. So, there's lots of different ways of, you can deal with it by not being around for the holidays. You and your partner take some time and go away, which is one way of doing that's taking care of yourself. And that's if you're not around, they can't say anything that might be hurtful, or you might not see anything that might be hurtful.
Right.
So I think the biggest thing is to listen and trust your inner voices. The parts that say to you, I don't want to go to this party because I know it's going to be so many kids. And the other part that says, I really should go. It's really not nice. What are people going to say? And,
Right.
so those are conflicting points of view. And if you can just take a minute to listen to both sides, ask, what would be so bad if you didn't go, right?
Right.
Is the people, are they going to stop loving you? Is it that you don't want to disappoint people? And then you're balancing that part's needs versus your need, which is not to be put in that position, right?
Right. And so what do you say to people, like, say if they're conflicted because they're going to get guilted, like, why aren't you coming? And it's such a hard thing, because then you get all this guilt, but at the same time you emotionally can't handle being in that kind of
Yeah,
situation.
I feel so guilt is one of those really difficult emotions to feel, right? Because we can do a lot of things out of guilt and then we regret it later.
Hmm.
And so
Right.
this is a moment in time because it's so many days, from middle of December to, after New Year's. There's so many things that are happening. If you start now and keep going to everything that people are guilting you into, you're not going to have any energy for the whole
Yeah.
process of fertility treatment, which we know is not easy. So I
Right.
think it's important to always have, what do I want to say, uh, a stock line
Hmm.
to say to people when they start guilting you. You could just say politely, please don't. It makes me feel guilty and that's not healthy for me.
Yeah.
Right? You could just be really blank, or you could say, I'm sorry that you feel that way, and I hope in time you'll begin to understand.
Hmm.
Something that really takes care of yourself. You don't have to be nasty. You don't
Right.
have to be any of those things, but you could speak from your heart and take care of yourself.
Yeah.
The
And
other,
respect yourself and go, like, respect your own feelings.
well, you have to respect your feelings because if you're in no matter where you are in fertility treatment, if you're just at the beginning, you need your energy for what may be a marathon, hopefully not, but it might
Right.
not be a sprint, right? So,
Yeah.
so you need that. And the more that people allow those kind of negative things to come in, the less energy you have and it pulls you down. And we need to be as, even if it's not positive, it's cautiously optimistic. We're just
Hmm.
trying to get through the treatment process to get the end result. So that's why I think taking care of yourself is so important during this time. And that might mean don't go to a mall, you know,
Right.
go shop local or get your mom or dad or sister, somebody to buy presents for you. If you have to go into a kid's store, have somebody else do it. Think about creative ways of really taking care of yourself.
It's almost like you need to think ahead of time to prepare yourself, because typically we don't have to do that in
Right.
life. We just kind of live life and then interact with people and not have to
Hmm.
think. But in this case, and especially in cases of these kind of challenges, it's great to maybe think ahead of time, like, what do I say?
Hmm.
Where should I go? Or plan it out so that you're not putting yourself in a compromising situation emotionally.
Yeah, totally. When we're in our regular, um, let's say, day to day living, we don't have to. We're
Hmm.
not on guard. We're not preparing. You're right. We're just living life. But when we get
Right.
challenges like this, and without thinking, somebody comes up and says something what they think is innocuous or helpful, like, um, how's the baby making process going?
Hmm. Yeah.
When are you going to give your parents a baby so they can be grandparents? Said in a joking way, and those kind of things hit in a way that is so deep as you're going through fertility issues
Yeah.
that you have to be able to prepare yourself because otherwise those are the kind of things that can really get people furious, can really get them depressed, can really begin to say, I'm not going out anywhere because every time I go out, somebody says something so hurtful to me. So being prepared, it may still hurt if they say it, but at least you know how to get out of it,
Right.
you know?
Yeah.
And things like, this is a time that often happens that partners disagree.
Mm-hmm.
So the husband may say, we have to go to my folks. You know how we have that great big Christmas party and we have everybody comes. And the wife says, oh my God, I can't bear the thought of all those nieces and nephews and everybody around, and so's pregnant. It's going to be really hard for me. And it can start to be one of those moments where ordinarily everybody's great, but here now you're taking care of yourself, you're trying to take care of yourself, but it might be perceived as being selfish. It might be perceived as, well, you never liked my family anyway. So it's
Right.
really about talking about it and
Yeah.
being able to come to some kind of agreement where you can take care of yourself. And that it's not, to explain to your partner, no, this has nothing to do with that. Doesn't mean that I don't like your family, but I am really hurting.
Right. It's such a complicated situation when it comes to really both sides, because from what I understand from you and a lot of people that I've spoken to that are in the mental health field specializing in fertility, is that men and women take the journey so differently.
Yeah, totally differently. Right. Yeah. I think it's dependent on whose issue it is. If it's the male issue or the female issue, that's one of the um, uh, ways it differs. Men really do
Hmm.
think about it differently and handle it differently than women do. Um,
Yeah.
and also, women tend to be, sometimes women want to uh, do lots and lots of research, and men don't want to do the research. There's so many different avenues where it can be, where they divert, they
Hmm.
separate in terms of how they think about the journey that they're on.
Right. And I think that it's so empowering to actually just know that when you're going
Right.
through that, because I feel like if you know that, then you'll be like, oh, okay, well, that's normal. But if you
Yes, I think
don't
you're
know
right.
that, then you think that it's just your relationship and it's just your husband or your wife, or, you just don't. You don't understand, you don't realize that it's not just you, it's other couples, it's a normal thing, it's natural. And then once I think that you know that, not that it makes it all better, but it probably alleviates some of that frustration.
Yeah, I think you're 100% right. Until you said that, I didn't really think about, but that is probably one of the biggest places that people say, "Oh, I had no idea."
Mm,
So you're right, and I think what it does is it normalizes it for people, and say, "Oh, it's not." You're right. It's not just my husband or my wife.
mm,
This is
yeah.
what people, and they can begin to talk. Oh, I see that you need to go out and be with your friends. Let's say a woman says that to her husband, and not take it personally,
Right.
but that's the way they're coping.
Yes, exactly. And it just kind of understand their language, that they just have a different language than you. Because if it's the same
Right.
language and they act like that, then it feels insulting. But if you realize
Yeah.
it's a different language and a different kind of mental culture, in a
Right.
sense,
Right.
then it's like, okay, I get it.
Yeah, because we do have different ways of coping,
Yeah.
right? And sometimes those coping mechanisms can really hurt if we're not aware of, oh, that's what's happening for him or that's what's happening for her. And that's a beginning of a conversation. So
Hmm.
you notice it and you can say, oh, I noticed that you kind of buried yourself in a book today, honey. So I'm wondering is what's happening here.
Right.
You can, with an open heart. It's not with a mad, angry part that's attacking. It's a much more compassionate way of being with your partner.
Right. And another thing, too, that comes to mind is that not everybody is open with their journey and their challenges, so that they
Right.
go and nobody knows that they're kind of like suffering in silence.
Mm-hmm.
And so there's kind of like two options. It's a very personal decision if you want people to know or not know. And so, that can also play a role in your ability to explain or, communicate what you're feeling and why you're feeling that way, and even have your needs met. So I guess
Yeah.
ultimately it's like maybe prepare yourself to not have your needs met.
Yeah. And Well, people definitely feel alone in this journey, right? They
Mm-hmm.
and they don't understand, or they don't know how difficult it is for not only them but for everybody who's in the journey. And knowing what to do for yourself, what are the things that you need to be able to get through this journey? Maybe
Mm-hmm.
isolation is, you can give yourself that isolation is generally really feels good for you.
Mm-hmm.
And then you could say to your partner, yeah, I need to isolate right now, but I don't want to do it. This is for this week, and let's
Mm-hmm.
check in next week. So trying to get your needs met, um, and find out what your needs are. A lot of people don't know what they need, and then they just explode because they haven't really thought, oh, this wasn't good for me to come to this party. They just
Right.
do it. They do it it's like a rote thing. Mom says, you're going to come to the party, right? And your answer is yes, without thinking about, is this really a good thing for me?
Yeah. And then sometimes you kick yourself afterwards. You're like, I
Right,
knew it wasn't good for me and I should have listened to myself. And
right,
yeah,
right. Yeah, that's why it's so important to really be in touch with what's going on for you, right?
definitely.
Really.
And my other question is what if you really can't get out of it? Say it's like
That
a trip or something like that and you're stuck basically facing it.
Yeah, so this is when partnership is really important.
Mm-hmm.
That's if you have a partner. Of course, these kind of difficulties can happen for single moms by choice. They can happen for not just heterosexual couples, but same sex couples. But right now we're talking about a couple.
Mm-hmm.
And so I think you have to talk about what it is you're doing. If you're going to a party, or you're going to a dinner party or a regular party, you can always show up late or
Mm-hmm.
leave early. I think
Mm-hmm.
discussing it with your partner that says, okay, when I kick you under the table, that
Mm-hmm.
means I've got to go. And we have
Right.
to
Or
think,
yeah, this
right.
is a perfect time when white lies are okay.
Yes, and totally, totally, yeah. Or,
Yeah.
or you're calling, and this is something you really can't go, and your husband calls for you and says, oh, Sally is really under the weather. I'm sorry, really hoping to go, and not
Mhm.
go and stay home and just be with each other. And I
Yeah.
think that that's okay.
Yeah.
And people and even at the people that you are comfortable saying, like, I think this is too difficult for me, where I am in my journey, and I just don't think I can do it. If they love you and appreciate your friendship, they're going to understand. And if they don't, you can either take the opportunity to explain, or you can say, oh, well, I guess they're really not my friends. It,
Yeah.
it kind of shows.
Definitely.
It shows who's there to stand behind you or beside you, right? During
That's right.
tough times.
Yes. And that's and this is kind of like on a tangent, but it's kind of an overall like a lot of people going through that sometimes when you go through any type of challenges, it sometimes sheds a light on who's right for you and who's not
Yeah,
right for you.
right,
And then there's that setting those boundaries and really being strong enough to be able to say, you know what, I don't need this person in my life anymore.
right. Exactly. It is a wake up call, right?
Yeah,
And it may sting, but it's also really good information, right? It
yeah.
may set you. And I think what you brought up is really important. That I do find that having gone through infertility treatment, it changes how you view life. And
Hmm.
sometimes people will learn a lot of things, just like what you said. They may find out that these people weren't here for me. That's not who
Hmm.
I want in my life.
Yeah,
Yeah. So, when you go through, you go through trauma, it changes you. And fertility is trauma,
it is.
right? Infertility. Yeah.
Yeah, absolutely. And it's just there's so many different things, but I think this is great. I mean, just to have some kind of tools or to give yourself, for people hearing this, just the permission that what you're feeling is totally valid
Right.
and totally normal, like as it should feel like this. And you have every right to say to put your boundaries up and to protect yourself.
Right. And at the same time, the the if you're going through this fertility treatment and all you're doing is biting off your partner's head or screaming at everybody you come in contact with, that's also a message that you probably need to talk to somebody, right? Because
Yeah,
you can go through fertility, it can be really, really, really hard, but you need support. And so it might be a girlfriend, it might be your mom, it might be somebody, but to help. If you notice that that's what's happening, that everything is, you're screaming at everybody, that's a really hard way to live. And it's not that it's not going to help. It's such treatment can be such a long process that it's a lot of energy.
it
Yeah.
is.
So the more you,
It's that happy medium,
right,
finding peace in the journey, even though it's not a peaceful journey,
right,
but to not endure this like tremendous, crazy suffering where it's also coming from, just completely resisting what
right,
is.
right. Yeah, it's so much energy. I mean, that's what I think. It's
Yeah.
just so much. It's not. I don't believe, and we don't seem to have any research that says, stress stops um, pregnancy. There's
Hmm.
lots of kind of ancillary information that we know that it's better. The less stress you have, the better it is for your general health. And
Hmm.
but it's always good to be less stressed, and it's also good just
Yeah.
because this is not a, this may not be just one cycle of IUI. It may
Right.
be two cycles of IVF, and so that requires a lot of stamina. So the more you can kind of just be, we know it sucks, but if you're
Hmm.
really expending a lot of negative energy to the world, you need to have some support and give that to yourself. You
Yeah.
deserve it.
So what are the best ways for people to find resources, first of all, for people who specialize in this?
Well, first of all, you're an acupuncturist, so acupuncture is a wonderful thing to do, not only for the medical aspect of it, but for relaxation.
Hmm.
That's a really great way to go. Massages, how to treat yourself to a great massage. Therapists, there's lots of therapists. You can look on Psychology Today and find people who specialize in fertility so they know they can talk to you about what it's like to go through a cycle. And I do recommend people, to find a therapist who's really, it's a specialty, because
Yeah.
if you have to talk to a therapist and you have to explain what different things are, different tests and things, it's
Yeah.
also really hard for them to be the educator as opposed to being the person who wants some help. It's hard to educate the therapist.
Yeah, absolutely. And you don't want to take an extra
Exactly.
responsibility when you're paying
Right,
for
right.
therapy,
I don't
an
want to take
extra
I don't
time.
want to take care of you. Yeah,
No,
yeah,
no,
yeah. But,
definitely not.
yeah. And I think, this is also a time to talk about what to say to people. That there people say really kind of stupid things during this process if they know that you're going through it. And
Hmm.
I mean, I think it's stupid things that people who are well meaning say, and
Yeah.
what to say about that. So,
I think it's because they don't know what to say.
yeah,
Yeah, I think it's that they just like they're out of like they don't know what to say and they get uncomfortable.
right,
So then they say stupid things.
exactly. And whatever, and again, this is a moment in time where it's important to have what you want to say. If somebody says, well, it's God's plan, which I think is one of the worst things to say, um,
Yeah.
uh, well, what are you going to say to them? Thank you for praying for me. That's possible. Something that just kind of stops the conversation. They might say,
Hmm.
just relax, which is blaming the person, just relax as if they're
Hmm.
doing something to stop themselves.
Yeah.
So again, no, just have something. I'll tell my mom when it happens. She'll be the first. She'll be the first to know, and then she'll call you. Just anything to get out of the situation and stop the conversation.
Right. And not even engage.
Not engage. Don't engage. Right,
Yeah,
because that's only more hurtful.
exactly. And it's going to drain your energy, which you need.
Exactly. Right. Right. Yeah.
So this is great. I wanted a little something because I think that this is definitely a time where it's extremely challenging. The holidays in general can be
Right.
very they can be great and they can also be very challenging. And they're definitely a trigger time
Totally.
for a lot of people, depending, like all around, all across the board with different challenges. So I thought it would be great, and I think that what you shared today was great for people to think about. And also, what I really took from it, which I thought was very empowering, is the fact that you really need to think ahead of time.
Right.
When you're going through something like this, you really need to think ahead of time and prepare yourself. And I think that that really is what makes a huge difference, knowing like this is what's going to happen, because there's nothing worse than getting triggered off guard.
Oh, terrible, right? Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. And it's not selfish to take care of yourself. Some people have that belief. If they put themselves first, it's really selfish. That's not a nice thing to do. This is a time when you want to take care of yourself and you need to take care of yourself. Because ultimately you want to be present and have the energy to go to however long you decide to go in this journey.
Right.
Yeah.
And so basically, like what I'm hearing, really, the big message is take care of yourself. Do not feel guilty for taking care of yourself. But at the same time, if you want to rip people's heads off, it's probably not healthy for you either. So you have to just kind of find that balance of just trying to get through this journey, because as it is, it's so hard, but then at least get your reserves
Right.
and your emotional balance in check so that you could just handle it as easy and best as possible.
Yeah, and find out what it is where do you want to get that from? Look around and see what fits your personality. If it's a massage, it's a massage. If it's talking to somebody, then find somebody to talk to, right? So again, it's whatever works for you, thinking of yourself, taking care of you.
So another question, just what, if somebody feels like they need therapy and they don't have a lot of money to spend or the resources, is there a suggestion, something that they can do, maybe journal or something that they could do?
Well, I think you have to be careful about going online because there's a lot of bad information out there. There's places like Resolve, which is a national organization that's been around forever. The American Society of Reproductive Medicine has a place with some information. If you need somebody to talk to, or you might have, I'm noticing that there's a lot of online companies who specialize in women's health now. You might find out if your company offers insurance through them, and there are some low cost online therapies that don't charge full price. What you would in definitely a reduced price for therapy. So that's some possibilities.
Great. Awesome. I'm going to put on the website for the Resolve and the American Board of Reproductive Medicine.
American Society of Reproductive Medicine.
American Society.
Right.
Okay. I'm going to put those resources on the episode notes. So if anybody wants, they can go and check
and also
that out.
look for a support group in your area so that you can have so support groups are wonderful because they're women. I haven't been able to put together a couples group. I've tried for 3 years, but you have women who get what you're going through. You don't have to explain anything. They are, they get the emotional roller coaster that you're on because they're on it also. And that's, a lot of people say to me, oh, I've never been to a support group. I don't know what it's going to be like. And I'll tell them, you could talk or not talk, whatever you want to do. But invariably, somebody who comes new feels supported and they start talking right away because they know that they don't have to explain anything. They feel gotten. And that's a huge thing.
Yeah.
So
Huge.
Look for a support group in your area.
Yeah, what you just said, I mean, relatability, having that is so healing. It's such a healing and soothing thing to have.
You don't feel alone. Yeah.
Yeah.
And you can learn something. I've had a lot of people say, "Oh, I didn't know that," and then go do something and it turns out really well for them. So it's first of all, it's talking, which women like to do, right? That's a healing process for us,
Yeah.
and connecting. And then
Right.
it's information gathering. Somebody might be a really
Yeah.
great information researcher, and somebody else says, "Oh, I don't have the
Right.
energy to do that." And all of a sudden you've got a place where you can get information really easily.
That's great.
Yeah.
Yeah. Awesome.
Great.
So these are great tips. And I knew that you were going to bring very valuable information on at a very crazy time
Yeah.
in the year.
Yeah.
So, so thank you so much. It's always a pleasure having
Likewise,
you.
Michelle, and happy holidays to you.
Happy
Okay,
holidays.
thanks so much.
So that concludes today's episode. You can find all the links mentioned on the episode notes. If you're enjoying these episodes, please take a moment to leave a review. Reviews are everything to podcasters. You can find me on my website at www.thewholesomelotus.com. And please be on the lookout for my online course and program. This course has emerged from everything that I've been using for the fertility program I now offer at my office. I wanted to consolidate all of my suggestions and coaching and put it into a form that anyone can purchase and use. It was important for me to encompass key fertility health factors as well as guide you in implementing changes in your routine that are shown to boost fertility while being realistic and user-friendly. I will be offering this course with and without coaching. If you're interested and want updates as well as a free ebook on my top 10 fertility boosting habits, you can visit my fertility page on www.thewholesomelotus.com, where you can find the subscription form. I thank you so much for listening in and hope you have a beautiful day